about identifying conic sections. We've talked about our conics. We've talked about parabolas. We've talked about ellipses, which also circles fall into that category. We've talked about hyperbolas. Those are your three basic groupings of conic sections. What we're going to talk about today is something called the discriminant test. Now, you've used the discriminant before. We've used the discriminant back, I don't know if we've used it this year, but in Algebra 2, we used it to find how many solutions a quadratic would have. Okay? We're going to use the discriminant, and it'll tell us what kind of equation it is. So, given an equation of this crazy form, ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared plus dx plus ey plus f equals 0. Or an equation that can be put in that form. So, the type of equation, when I look at it, I have no idea what it is necessarily. In other words, it's not in our standard form where I can say, oh, hey, this looks like a parabola or an ellipse or a hyperbola. It's not in that standard form. Given that equation with a, b, c, d, e, and f as your coefficients, okay, if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, you know it's a hyperbola. So we're saying if b squared minus 4ac, what do we mean greater than 0? If it is positive, we know that that equation represents that of a hyperbola. If b squared minus 4ac equals 0, the equation is that of a parabola. Okay? And then lastly, well, what's the third option? B squared minus 4ac can be positive, 0, or negative. So if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, when we say less than 0, that's fancy speak for saying negative, then it is an ellipse. Okay? That is the only thing I'm talking about today. We're going to do a few examples to practice, but it is just being able to use this information to identify it as what kind of conic section it is. A lot of times it has to do with if A and C both exist, whether or not B exists, and goes from there. Okay? So, let's go down to our examples. Determine what conic section the following equations would graph by finding the discriminant. So, the other option is solve it for y and graph it. But solving these for y is not fun. So, let's talk about finding our discriminant. With that in mind, let's go through on this one and at least identify our ABCs. Or A, B, C, D, E, Fs. What's A? 9. Because 9 is in front of x squared, which, by the way, my equation does equal 0, yes? If it doesn't equal 0, you would want to make it equal 0 before you talk about your ABCs. Okay? What's B?
Is there no B?
Okay. Where's B supposed to be?
Right there. XY.
It's supposed to be in front of the XY term. Do I have an XY term?
No.
No, I don't have an XY term, so that does mean that B is 0. Because there's a 0 XY term if you want to think that way. What's C?
16.
Okay, C is 16 because that's the coefficient of y squared. What's D? Negative 18 because that's the coefficient of x. What's E? 64, that's the coefficient of y. And what's F? Negative 71. Okay, now in all honesty, did we really need to identify D, E, and F? Not really, but it's, just making sure we understand. So, we need to find the discriminant. B squared minus 4AC. So what are we doing? 0 squared minus 4 times 9 times 16. Well, in all honesty, without grabbing my calculator, without doing the math, I can tell which group this falls into. because 0 is 0 squared is 0 minus some number. What is this going to give us?
An ellipse.
Has to be an ellipse, doesn't it? Because 0 minus all those numbers multiplied is going to be less than 0. It's going to be a negative. I believe it ends up being, okay, so 0 minus 576, so it is negative 576, which is indeed less than 0. And so that means that this is an ellipse. Okay? Okay, let's talk B. Rather than me go through all my letters, why don't you tell me what we do know?
B.
Okay, B is
2x.
2, because it's in front of the xy. What else do we know?
F.
F is
Negative 9.
-9, because it's the coefficient, or the constant. Okay? What's that mean about everybody else?
0.
Okay, that means A, C, D, and E are all 0, doesn't it? Okay, so do some math. Should be pretty easy math, right? B squared, so we're going to be doing 2 squared minus 4 times 0 times 0. We end up with 4 minus 0, which is 4. What do you know about 4? It's greater than 0. Which category does that put us in? Okay. This ellipse would be that of a hyperbola. Okay. And one more. What can you tell me on C? Okay. A is the 1 in front of x squared. B is the 4 in front of the xy term. C is the 4 in front of y squared. We'll go ahead and label the rest just because. D is the negative 30 in front of x. E, negative 90 in front of y. And F, the 450. Okay. Probably the most math we're going to have to do on any of these. There's no zeros involved. So what do we have? 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4. 16 minus 16, which is 0. Crazy thing, 0 equals 0, so this is a parabola. Okay, guys. That's what your homework is. Okay? So it's page 602, 43 to 52. So it's, what, approximately 10 problems doing exactly this. Seriously, this homework should be like a 10-minute homework. It should be a pretty quick homework, okay?